prepare, respond, serve. This is 5 Stone. This is 5 Stone's podcast, introduction to who we are. My name is Eric Townsend.
This is John Conover.
This podcast today is going to kind of be an introduction, so you can kind of get to know us individually. Our first podcast that we released out was just an introduction to 5 Stone in general, and what the company's about, what we do, and how we can help you guys out. But I want to get more specific and kind of let people get to know who we are, okay? So let's start with you, man. So tell the people out there a little bit about yourself, your history, and I think your family history is pretty awesome, how it ties in with emergency medical services and what you bring to 5 Stone in the community, man. Go for it.
No, you mentioned my family history, which is, in my opinion, the foundation of which my career is built on. My dad was the first EMT in Adair County.
That's crazy.
Where we grew up.
Yeah.
And he worked on the ambulance. You know, he got, I think, certified in 1974, which is when the actual EMS curriculum started.
Wow.
But he drove the ambulance. He was like a ambulance driver before then for the local funeral homes.
Really?
Yeah. So there was evidently 2 local funeral homes in Columbia, which are still there, and they each had an ambulance. And if somebody called for help, they would literally race to the scene, and whoever got there first hauled the patient. And
really?
Yeah, got that business. Yeah.
The funeral home had the ambulance?
The funeral home, yeah. He drove a raised top Cadillac, yeah, with a stretcher in the back. So basically, all they would do is show up and, throw somebody in the back.
Load and go?
Load and go to the hospital, scream to the hospital. And there was maybe 1 or 2 people on the crew members. So
the hospitals didn't have ambulances back then?
No, the funeral homes did the pre-hospital stuff.
No way.
Yeah,
I had
true.
no
Yeah.
idea.
So each person, evidently there was like a few, of course I've not heard these stories in years, but evidently there was just a few people on the ambulance service or worked for the funeral homes, and they would take the ambulance home with them. So I've got pictures of the old raised top Cadillac ambulance in the driveway of my dad's parents' house when he lived with his parents.
That is crazy, man.
Yeah, so whoever...
So there was not an EMS service at that time?
No, not till mid-'70s.
So there was no EMS.
There was no
in Adair County,
Adair County ambulance. Yeah,
and your dad was the first ambulance driver.
He was one of the first. Of course, there was people before him, but he was in that first class when people got certified. Along with a few other. I think just to throw out a couple, a name or two, but Phil Bailey, which. He worked EMS here for a while, and I think ultimately he moved to Florida and become like a battalion chief at Largo Fire Department in Florida.
Really?
Yeah, and but he's just recently moved home in the last few years, but now he's got some health issues now. But
I hate to hear
that. But yeah, there was several back in the early '70s, and like I said, I should.
Well, that's crazy. If you think about this. All right, so I'm at the house and I'm having a problem. And I call the funeral home for help.
yeah. I don't know exactly what number.
Yeah.
I don't know if you called a certain funeral home, but I was always told that, like, if there was a wreck or something like that, both funeral homes would know about it, and like they would go and they would race to the scene. That was the stories that was always told to me. Like whoever got there first got that business. I guess the patient, technically is a customer. These private businesses. But and
imagine that now. Imagine you have a wreck and then the hearses are rushing to your scene.
Yeah. They were like
that's crazy, man.
Hearse type vehicles. Like they were old race type Cadillacs, but they had like a red cross on the door.
Gosh.
That was the ambulance.
That's wild.
But in around 74, the Department of Transportation, put out EMS curriculum, and that's when municipal ambulance services started. And Dad went to like the first EMT class here, and they drove the ambulance.
So I guess that's before they had local instructors anywhere. People probably had to go Frankfurt or somewhere and get trained from the state. Or
to be honest with you, I don't know how that happened.
I
don't ever remember him saying. I was under the impression that there was a class. In fact, there was one of the first paramedic classes was taught here at Lindsay.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't know if it was a college class or not. It could have been just somebody coming and teaching like they used to.
That's crazy.
But yeah, the actual facts on it all is kind of course, a lot of them guys are dead and
Lost
gone
in
now.
time,
Yeah,
yeah.
Dad died 8 or 9 years ago, and I wish I would have paid attention more.
Yeah, we all
asked
got
more
those
questions.
regrets, man. Yeah.
But anyway, like I grew up as a child of barely walking. Like I was hanging out at the ambulance service.
Yeah.
With Rick Wilson and Greg Mann and like all them people,
the legends,
the legends
yeah.
that we all know and love. But I spent more time at an ambulance service than most kids spend at a daycare.
Yeah.
So I was just exposed to it all of my life. And he was a director in Adair County for a while, and then he went on to sell ambulances and medical equipment. And then in 1999, I started riding the ambulance. I was still in high school. But because of that connection, he was able to pull some strings. I started riding an ambulance when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And man, I was riding like full-time hours. I would get out of high school or get out of school, and before I got my license, I wasn't even 16 years old.
But didn't your dad have something really big to do with like the establishments of like the ambulances or something within the state or something? What was his?
Yeah. So, do you know Joe Bradshaw? And so him and Joe and Bob Calhoun, they were all worked for the state EMS back before it was K-beams.
Okay.
And they got the ALS protocols, the paramedic protocols, established in the state. So, pre-1990, there was paramedics around, but there wasn't any true ALS protocols,
really?
The way I understand it. But they actually established that that ALS.
And Bradshaw's still doing it today, isn't he?
Yeah, still in the pre-hospital business.
That's
I think
cool.
works for ARIVAC.
You got legends like, of course, your dad who's passed now, and then you got Wilson, and you got Greg Mann and Bradshaw, and I've seen these people over the years working locally, see them come in and bring patients in, and seen. I don't know how to word it really. It's like you got these people who have been here from the beginning, and they have such a strong compassion for the people in the community. It's not a job.
They've done it for free for years.
Yeah, it's like not a job to them.
Yeah,
it's like legit. I've seen, one in particular. I won't mention which one it was because I don't want them to, feel awkward me sharing this. But came in and bringing patients into the emergency room and sit there and weep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With the child.
Yeah.
And weeping with them and the parents and stuff because they have such a strong connection to the community and they hate to see it. And I'm sure they reflect back on the establishment and how far it's come and where it's going to go. And that's just that's so huge. And your connection to that is just astronomical.
Yeah.
So, sorry, man. Man, go ahead.
Talking about the way they were back in the days, it was a family, I remember years ago, with Dad and his partner, him and Rick Wilson were partners for a while.
Yeah.
And like they were at family gatherings, like when we would have Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving, they had to work. They were both there, like Rick Wilson or Greg Mann. Like we would go to each other's family's house. Like we were together every day.
Yeah.
Not just, working a 24-hour shift with them, and you won't see them for another 3 days. No, on our off days, we were with each other every day.
That's a strong bond.
Yeah.
Well, when you go through that development and that the trials and the struggles, I'm sure that they had to get something like that established, and then you imagine, man, those guys responding. excuse me, those guys responding on the streets with little to no equipment, no policies and programs in place besides the one that they've established.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a bond, man. You know, that's just unbreakable,
Yeah, like you said, old equipment, little, or it'd be broken, I've heard plenty of stories of broken down ambulances. In fact, Dad always told a story about an ambulance breaking down right there at 80 and Westlake Drive.
Really?
There in front of the dollar store.
Yeah.
And they had to get the patient out of the truck, and they just wheeled them down to the hospital. Like,
it
was about a mile down the road.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the ambulance was broke down. So that was back when it was a Lake Cumberland EMS. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that.
So there was a regional ambulance service, like Pulaski County, Russell, Adair, Greene. There were several counties in together. Taylor
That's
County
cool,
was
man.
part of it.
You know, I know we got this podcast here and we're talking about local things, but I'm sure this happened all throughout the country.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so for you guys listening in, I know this is really a introductory podcast for John Aaron here, but think about this in your own hometown. Think about those legends that are still here and still on the streets, or the ones that have passed, and think about it and go talk to them and learn that history, because that is something that you're benefiting from today, from those people's sacrifices and bravery to come to the front line and make this happen.
Yeah, a lot of good stories there.
Yeah.
Very good, educational.
So you started riding on the truck in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But when did you start actually go to EMT school, or just take us through your whole history?
Well,
man. Not just EMS, take us through everything. Like, so you talked about in high school, you started riding on the truck.
Yeah, so junior year I graduated in 2003. So 2001 would have been either end of my sophomore or beginning of junior year. 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I never really had the urge to be in the military. It's just that happened, and it I think for everybody, it pissed everybody off. Everybody's
absolutely.
So just on a whim, like I actually tried to join 17 years old in my junior year, and Dad, being the man that he was, he's like, that's absolutely not. That's an adult decision. When you turn 18, you can, by all means, you can join. I'll support you 100%. He's like, but that's not on me. So I'd wait a year. So I joined the Army in senior year of high school and turned 18.
Yeah.
So went to
man.
the Army. Not a huge career. It was fairly short. Blew a knee out during school, so I was only in for a couple years. But of course, my passion has always been, in the medical field. But I got out of the Army and immediately I had to do like reserves for a little while. So while I was in the reserves, I found an EMT class in Lebanon, Marion County, and Paula Cole and George Wimsett and all of them over there.
Yeah.
Taught my EMT class.
So whenever
and that was 2005.
What did you go in the military for?
Well, actually, I initially went to the Air Force, like to the recruiter, like, hey, I want to be a medic in the Air Force, and they just straight up was like, no, we don't need anybody. Good luck, send me kicking rocks. And so I basically just walked next door. I walked out of the Air Force recruiter, and right next door was the Army. So I walked in over there and told him I want to be a medic. He's like, no, I got something cooler for you. And he's like, we can be a scout. So basically ride on a tank, a Bradley tank, and we can cross train. They tell you so many lies. Like none of it happened. Yeah. But I did. I went in. I was easily persuaded into being a cavalry scout. So that's what I went in for.
That was your MOS. Cool, man.
Yeah, 19 Delta. But like I said, it was basically went to a couple schools, got hurt, and went and had to do the reserve unit over in Somerset. But it was fun. But to be honest with you, like I said, it was more of a knee-jerk reaction to what happened. Yeah. From the terrorist attacks than anything else.
That impacted everybody. In this
it
country,
did. It did. And there's a lot of first responders that gave their life that day for, But
and one thing too that we go into talking about is in the podcast coming up is PTSD for first responders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really didn't come to light until 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that brought to light the stress and the suffering and the relationship issues and the personal issues that come across with first responders. It was just kind of isolated military.
Yeah.
Then they seen the effects. So anyway.
After, like I said, in 2004, I started EMT class. Graduated like 1st of 2005. It was a winter class.
Mm-hmm.
So January, February is when I graduated. I remember I got certified in March of 2005. So this is we're wrapping up my 15th year. Well, this coming March will be my 16th year being certified.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So,
and with your EMS service, all the years you've worked in numerous areas around the state, but you've done more than just riding a truck.
Yeah.
What else? What all have you done?
So, let me touch on that.
And I didn't mean that disrespectfully to anybody who rides in a truck. I don't mean it that way. I just meant like your career's taken you just more than just being on the streets. You went and done administrative roles and things like that. What all have you done?
So let me go back to the beginning when I got certified. When you first get certified, you kind of wherever you can get a job at, that's where you start. Kind of just take what you can get.
Right.
And luckily, my dad had connections everywhere, and one of my first jobs was here at Camelsville, and then just like a week or two later, I got hired full time at Hardin County in Elizabethtown. And
it's a big EMS service.
That's a very busy EMS system. And that's, to be honest with you, that's still where my heart's at. That's where I made really good friends there, family pretty much. And then during that first year or so in EMS, I always wanted to work in a dairy county. That's where I grew up. But when Dad got sick, I just avoided it.
Yeah.
It's like that was my nightmare scenario, was having to work on my dad.
Yeah.
But and that's what kept me away. I feel like sometimes I feel like I should have started there and just made my career there. But to be honest with you, I wasn't prepared to face those problems.
And again, the PTSD, and you wouldn't have felt that if you hadn't had previous experiences leading you up to that point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you see suffering and you see those things happen, and you don't want to see your own family have to go through that. Then be the one to do that.
Yeah.
I
definitely didn't want to be put in that situation.
I don't think you can shun yourself or look down on yourself because you didn't do that by any means whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Everybody's individual, and you got to do what you do to get yourself established and be in the right position. There's great medics locally still to take care of them too. You know
absolutely.
So,
yeah.
And that's because of your dad.
Yeah, and I never doubted.
Yeah, because he set up this strong community.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? People look around and, it's just a small rural town and this and that. But no, man, like for our first responder services, we got good people here.
Yeah, I've never doubted the care that I live in Columbia still, right in the middle of town.
Yeah.
And I just don't worry about what kind of care we're going to get, because I know it's going to be. And several of them there I went to paramedic school with, and Aaron Stamper taught that class, and so I know
the legend.
Yeah, so
5-stone legend now.
The senior medics, that's running the streets in Columbia, they're taught by the best.
And talking about Stamper, I know this is an interview for you, and I'm not taking away from yours, but this kind of all ties in together, because the establishment of EMS in this state, really, and strongly in this region, was developed in part by your father.
Mm-hmm.
And then from your father, it goes on that next generation. It comes down to you. And your instructors and the people that you train with are the people that's on 5-stone.
Yeah.
We've got Stamper.
Yeah.
We've got Rick Puckett.
Yeah.
We've got the next generation of legends for who they are.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. We'll have to ask Stamper and Puckett when they come on, but the number of students that they have turned out in this, not just students, high quality. I've been through their classes. You're not going to get through if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, so we got those two on the team, and then me and Preston.
Yeah.
We were in that same class. So
we've done some drills and some training with Preston. He has just blown my mind at his control and what he can do. He's awesome.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to take away from it.
No, that's fine. That's what this is for. But from there, I was there for 3 or 4 years at E-Town, and I got recruited by their high up at Louisville Metro EMS. Shortly after their merger, Rick Roller was their car 2 at Metro, and he worked at Hardin County part-time. And he recruited me. He told me, you could give me this much money and these benefits and all that stuff. I'm like, I've always wanted that high-paced run volume. I love that. I feel like I get restless if we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So I took him up on it and went to Metro, and I spent 6 years for Louisville Metro EMS. So started out in the worst EMS district in the state, in West End.
Yeah.
So I started out 26th in Portland at Engine 6. And rode the majority of my career down on Dixie Highway, which is the busiest EMS division in the state. In fact, they just made one of the national fire magazines top 10 list on
Really?
busiest ambulances in the nation.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, it was Station 1 at PRP, and
that's your old stomping ground.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I spent some time there, and then I wanted to get closer to home. Burnout is real, and in PTSD, like when you work multiple shootings every day or see a dead baby every shift, it gets to where you
Absolutely.
can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
So me and my wife decided that I had to do something different. So we come back home and start working Glasgow for a little bit. So I worked for Baron Metcalf EMS, and ended up, I was there for 2 or 3 years and got promoted to supervisor there before we had a management change. And it was a very nasty management change. About 15 or 20 people left.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I was one of them. There were some policies put in place I just couldn't morally uphold as a supervisor.
Yeah.
So I actually stepped down part-time and just was told that they didn't need me at all. So it was a bitter breakup, to say the least. So anyway, I made my way.
Works out
I
because,
made my way back north again, and actually, a pretty cool story is for Pleasure Ridge Park Fire Department.
Yeah.
Took on an ambulance service. They bought a certificate of need from one of the local private services and started an ambulance service. And I was one of the first paramedics that they hired to run an ALS ambulance service.
Wow.
So I was a supervisor there, street soup there out of Station 2 for PRP. And got that, me along with a few others, the original 6 paramedics they hired, we got that ambulance service off the ground from a simple
awesome,
BLS.
like following in the footsteps of your dad.
It really was. Seriously, that task was, that meant a lot to me to be a part of. And I did. I felt like it's just, that's where God wanted me to be,
How did you get tied in with working with some SWAT team?
Well, that was in Glasgow initially.
Okay.
So we've got their Barron County SO runs the county SWAT team.
Okay.
So initially there, we started training with them, getting a team together. Really started from the ground up, along with Glasgow City Police. But that management change that I talked about, shut it down.
Really?
Immediately, one of his first things he did was we had this SWAT team going, and we had a new education program going, and he shut them both down, like no more. And that was hard to take, something that I'd put a lot of time into, a lot of off time, personal time into, and something that several of us was passionate about to just be shut down, and for no reason. There was no reason given. So it's hard to take. But now, I worked PRP for a year to help him get that off the ground. And then Joe Middleton took back over Glasgow. So yet another management change for the good. So it was him and old buddy of mine, Garland Gillum. I don't know if you know him or not. He flew for AVAC for a little while.
Yeah.
And Eric Bauer, it's another legend. In the podcast world, like he was one of the very first medical podcasts in the world.
That's awesome.
But they called me and asked if I wanted to come back. And under that leadership, I couldn't say no to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a 25, 30-minute drive from home.
Well, when you got somebody too that worked with your dad, and the loyalty and the trust, and you know what I'm saying, that's huge.
Yeah. So I took him up on it and went back to Glasgow in January of this year, and of course it's been a very weird year.
Yeah.
With COVID.
It has.
But I was, of course, being low man on the totem pole again. I was put on night shift as a street medic. I got my I've had my critical care endorsement for the last I don't know 3 or 4 years now, maybe 5 years, something like that. So I was one of the critical care medics on duty for one of the night shifts at Glasgow.
Cool.
And but anyway, I kind of felt like I'd taken a step back just because of that role. I'd been supervisor for several years before I come back to Glasgow, and I felt like maybe I took a step back. Now I was riding the truck on night shift, and again, not knocking that. It's just it felt like the progress I'd made in my career. I felt like maybe I'd made the wrong decision, but
I don't think so though. But that shows, in a way though. I think, in my personal opinion, I'm not there in your shoes, but it shows other people there too that because where you're getting ready, I guess, take the storage where you're at now. That you weren't too good to do that.
Yeah, and that's, and I knew that. Like I had no qualms on being the new guy. I got to do new guy stuff. And had no problems doing that. Number one, because of who it was for. That management team was top notch, and I believed in them. Joe inherited a dumpster fire pretty much, and he sat me down in his office before I started work, and we had a long talk about his vision and where he wanted to take the service, and I believed in him.
Yeah.
So luckily, I try to be extremely loyal to people like that.
Right.
I'm never. It kind of sounds bad, but I'm not loyal to a service per se, but to an individual that that gives support and has good vision. About man, I'll go to hell and back with them.
That's right. Yeah.
And that I feel like is what we've done. We've turned that place around, and a few months ago I got promoted to supervisor again there. And I was just told that the SWAT team thing is getting back. It's getting moved to the front burner now. So
that is so important, man.
Yeah. So I'm teaching an EMT class with Eric right now, and we've got a couple SO officers in that class that are on the SWAT team, and it's been brought up. It's like, hey, we need you all on the team. So it's in the works. So getting back in that saddle again.
That's good.
Yeah. So
what's your vision, man? Where you think you see yourself going in the future? What do you think?
Well, to be honest with you, I love where I'm at right now. I love this position. I feel like it's the right place for me. I feel like the service that we're in is a very young department.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new people, very new paramedics and EMTs as well. Really, from the ground up, it's a young service. So I feel like I've been put in the right place to, help these individuals grow and to be good clinicians. So I'm content where I'm at for a little while, but retirement's on the horizon.
Right. How many years you got in now? You said almost.
So I've got
16?
Yeah, I'm coming up on 16. However, I spent a lot of part-time work at Russell County.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's added about 3 years to my retirement. So should be 4 years, but I'm working on about 7 left, which is nothing. Yeah, we're in the single digits regardless. So
downhill slide.
Yeah, and that's something that's really not really been important to me, but in the last couple of years, as a new EMT and paramedic, you just don't care about retirement really. You're just in it to win it. You're doing some cool stuff.
When I started working in the emergency room, they told me one day, they said, you would do this for free, wouldn't you? Like, you would not even get paid and show up. And I was like, yeah, don't tell them that, but yeah, pretty much would.
I mean,
that's how it is. And you start, it's just like, man, you just got that drive and that go, and you really don't lose it, but it takes a toll on your body when you start getting older. You're just like, oh man, how much
just like now,
like, going?
Dude, my back and my knees hurt I have severe back pain every day, every day. Yep. But I still love making runs.
Yeah.
So, luckily in my position, if the good run comes out, I can squirrel it and jump it.
Yeah.
But I just sit back and watch pretty much. I could do, if somebody's struggling intubation, step in there and intubate real quick and step back and, so it's
I
a
push the
lot.
button on the stretcher. I can raise it up for you.
Yeah. It's all you need to shock. Okay. But yeah, I think my guys really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That I show up. Man, I make a lot of runs with them. I just don't. I don't go to just good runs, but I try to make a lot of runs with everybody, just to prove that it's like, hey, I'm out here with you.
That's awesome, man.
And I'm there for support and guidance. Like if you get stuck on, you do your thing, but if you get stuck with something, you got help. Well,
I know that they're blessed to have you. I've known you about my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
We're blessed to have you here at Five Stone. You've put forth so much effort and dedicated so much to help us get this off the ground, and I can't thank you enough.
Man, it's a pleasure of mine.
Your family means the world to me. Your dad, I knew him personally too, and just the lineage and the heritage from EMS Community is just an honor to have here, and an honor for you to keep carrying that on for the people of this area and this community. And now, think of it this way. You're no longer focused on Kentucky.
Yeah.
Five Stone is reaching out across the country.
Yeah.
Everybody across the world can hear this podcast right now.
Yeah.
And they get a chance to hear the legend of your father.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah.
It is.
It's our way to show respect to him and to honor him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to honor all those legends that we just mentioned. And you're carrying the fire on, man. You're taking it to the next level and helping people across this world.
It's an honor.
So, anyway, man, that's it, I guess. Anything else you want to share?
I don't think so, man.
All right. Thank you guys so much for checking us out here at Five Stone, and we'll wrap this thing up, and we'll carry on with some more podcasts. So keep checking us out on the next one.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, anytime, dude. We'll holler at you later.
This has been a production of Five Stone. Guys, we thank you so much for taking time out of your day to support us. We cannot thank you enough. Please check us out at FiveStoneUSA.com. If you're in need of training, supplies, gear, information, whatever it might be, that's our main hub right there. We're also on YouTube and all the social media networks. You can check us out there. If you're in need for training, you're looking for something in particular, reach out to us and let us know. If it's not on the website, we'll do what we can to provide it for you guys, for your organization, your church, your school, whatever it might be. We're here to help you guys. We appreciate all of your support. Remember, discipline is readiness. And also always prepare, respond, and serve. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day and be safe out there.